The first sign something was wrong came when my key wouldn't fit. I jiggled it, pushed harder, even tried the spare I keep in my purse, but nothing. The lock had been changed. I stood there, balancing a grocery bag on my hip, staring at the door I had walked through thousands of times. My own door, the one I paid for, maintained, and kept standing through storms and winters. I set the bag down on the porch, my pulse pounding. From inside I heard laughter, a woman's laugh. Then Jason's voice, deeper now but still my son's. The voice I used to hear calling for me from down the hall. "Try the new code," Sarah giggled. I froze, my hand tightening on the doorknob. The words hit me like ice water. New code. They had locked me out of my own house. The bags of groceries cut into my fingers as I picked them back up, my body trembling with disbelief. I had let them stay here rent-free when they were getting on their feet. I'd cooked for them, covered their bills, let them fill the rooms with their noise and chaos. And this was how they thanked me, by shutting me out. I stepped back, my chest burning. They didn't know. They thought kindness made me powerless. They thought I was just the woman in the background, convenient and disposable. But they had forgotten something crucial. I didn't just own this house. I owned the entire building. I stood on the porch for a long moment, groceries digging into my arms, listening to them laugh inside. My own son and the woman who had slowly carved a wall between us. I set the bags down quietly, then pulled out my phone. My hands were steady now, colder, sharper than they'd been a moment ago. I dialed the property manager, my employee. "Hi, Greg," I said evenly, my voice calm as glass. "Change the locks on Unit 1 again, today, and make sure only my keys work this time." There was a pause. "Ma'am, didn't they just—" "Yes," I cut in. "They did, without permission." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Understood." When I hung up, I felt something deep inside me harden. They thought I was just a landlord in name only, that because I was their mother and mother-in-law I wouldn't fight back. But they were wrong. I picked up the groceries and walked around to the back, letting myself into the storage unit only I had the key for. The cool air smelled of dust and cedar, but it felt like freedom. I set the bags down, pulled up a chair, and sat. From the other side of the wall I could hear music start, loud and careless. Their voices blended with it, carefree, as though I no longer existed. I smiled to myself. They had no idea. This wasn't just a house. It was mine. All of it. And tomorrow, they'd learn what it meant to lock out the woman who held the deed. The next morning, I arrived before sunrise. The street was quiet, the sky still painted in gray-blue shadows. I sat in my car and waited, sipping my coffee, watching the windows of my own building glow one by one as the tenants woke. Finally, the blinds in Unit 1 shifted. Jason appeared, rubbing his eyes, then Sarah behind him, her hair tied up, phone already in hand. They looked comfortable, too comfortable. At 7 sharp, Greg pulled up in his van. He gave me a curt nod, toolbox in hand. "You really want to do this?" I raised an eyebrow. "Do you think I'm joking?" He shrugged, then went to work. Within minutes, the sound of metal scraping filled the air. The lock clicked free. The front door swung open just as Sarah appeared, her robe pulled tight. "What the hell are you doing?" she demanded. I stepped forward, calm, steady, correcting a mistake. Jason came rushing behind her, his voice sharp. "Mom, stop this! This is our home!" I looked at him, really looked. My son, standing in front of me, forgetting every sacrifice that had put a roof over his head. "No, Jason," I said softly but firmly. "This is my home. You and your wife are guests, and you just showed me how you treat hospitality." Their faces shifted, anger first, then the flicker of something else, fear, and in that moment I knew they finally understood. Sarah's face flushed red. "You can't just barge in here and change the locks. This is illegal." I almost laughed. "Illegal? Sweetheart, you're standing in a unit I own. You don't even have a lease. What's illegal is you locking me out." Jason's jaw tightened, his voice low. "Mom, please, don't do this. We just wanted privacy." "Privacy?" I snapped, the word sharp in my mouth. You've been living here rent-free for over a year, eating my food, using my electricity, and you lock me out like I'm some stranger off the street?" The silence stretched, heavy. Jason's eyes darted to Sarah, but she stayed quiet now, arms folded tight, lips pressed thin. I stepped into the living room, taking in the mess. Dishes piled in the sink, clothes tossed on the couch, the faint smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. This wasn't a home. It was a nest they'd built from my kindness, and now they thought it was theirs. I turned back toward them. "You wanted me out of the picture. You forgot who's holding the frame." Neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady tick of the clock on the wall, loud in the tension. I finally said, "You have until the end of the week. Pack your things." Jason's mouth fell open. "What? Mom, you can't." "I can," I cut in. "And I just did." Jason's voice rose, desperate now. "Where are we supposed to go?" I met his eyes, steady. "That's for you and your wife to figure out. You're adults. Start acting like it." Sarah's arms dropped to her sides, her face tight with fury. "You're cruel," she hissed. I almost laughed at that. "Cruel? I let you live here without paying a dime. I covered your bills, gave you food, and all you had to do was respect the roof over your head. Instead, you locked me out. Don't confuse cruelty with consequences." Jason opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He just stood there, the fight drained from him. For the first time, I saw the boy in him again, the one who used to look at me for answers. But this wasn't about rescuing him anymore. It was about teaching him. I picked up my grocery bags from the counter where Sarah had left them, the onions still rolling in the mesh, the bread flattened under a can. I carried them to the door. "End of the week," I repeated, my voice final. "After that, the locks change again, and next time you won't have keys." I walked out, the sound of their stunned silence following me into the sunlight. The days that followed were strangely quiet. No knocks at my door, no texts from Jason, just silence. But I noticed the signs. The blinds stayed shut in their unit. Sarah's car disappeared for long stretches, probably to her parents' house. Jason slipped out early in the mornings, his head down, shoulders hunched. By Thursday, the building felt lighter. Tenants stopped me in the hallway, whispering their thanks. "About time," one said. They were loud, entitled, always acting like they owned the place. I nodded but didn't respond. My anger had cooled into something steadier now. Resolve. That evening I slid a letter under their door. It wasn't harsh, just clear. Final notice. Vacate by Saturday at noon. I stood there for a moment listening. No movement inside, no voices, just the faint sound of the TV. As I walked back to my apartment, a calm settled over me. They thought they could erase me, lock me out of my own home. But by the weekend, they'd be the ones on the outside. Saturday came hot and heavy, the kind of heat that made the pavement shimmer. By noon, I stood in the hallway outside their unit. Greg beside me with a fresh set of keys. The door was still shut. No boxes, no bags. I knocked, firm. "Jason, Sarah, time's up." A pause, then footsteps. The door cracked open and Jason's tired face appeared. "Mom, please, just give us more time." Behind him, I could see Sarah sitting on the couch, arms crossed, eyes burning holes through me. I shook my head. "You had time. You wasted it. Now the locks change." Jason's voice broke. "We don't have anywhere to go." I felt a tug in my chest. Old instinct. The mother in me wanting to shield him. But then I remembered standing on that porch, groceries in my arms, locked out of my own house by my own son. I met his eyes. "You'll figure it out, like I did when I had nothing." Then I nodded to Greg. The sound of the drill filled the hallway, final and unshakable. The moment the new lock clicked into place, Sarah shot to her feet. "You'll regret this," she spat, grabbing her purse. Jason lingered, his face pale, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He looked at me once, just once, like he wanted to say something, but the words never came. They walked past me without another glance, the echo of their footsteps fading down the hall. I stood there in the silence they left behind, the air thick with the smell of dust and metal shavings. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt my home was mine again, not because I had forced them out, but because I had finally chosen myself. The silence after they left lingered in the building like a heavy fog. For days, I walked through the halls expecting to hear Sarah's clipped voice echoing from behind the door, or Jason's footsteps dragging late at night. But the unit stayed still, empty. I went inside on Monday morning, keys in hand, my chest tight. The air hit me immediately, stale, heavy with old food and something sour. Dishes were piled high in the sink, the fridge door left ajar, the carpet littered with fast food wrappers and crumpled clothes. My jaw clenched. They hadn't even bothered to clean, as though their mess was my problem to solve. I moved slowly from room to room, each step stirring up fragments of their life here. An empty wine glass on the nightstand, a pile of laundry dumped in the corner, a broken lamp shoved behind the couch as though hiding it would erase the damage. But the worst part wasn't the mess. It was the absence. On the mantel, there had once been a photo of Jason and me from his high school graduation. Me holding him with pride, his arm slung around my shoulder. It was gone now, taken, as if Sarah couldn't stand the sight of a time when I mattered more than she did. I sank onto the edge of the couch, pressing my face into my hands. For a moment the tears threatened again, but I held them back. I'd spent too many nights crying over that boy, over what I'd lost. And yet, as I looked around at the wreckage they left behind, I felt something else building inside me. Not grief, not anger, relief. Because the truth was, they hadn't just poisoned my home, they had poisoned me, turning my kindness into chains, making me feel like a guest in the life I had built with my own 2 hands. No more. I grabbed the trash bags from under the sink and started cleaning, one mess at a time. Each piece of garbage I tossed out felt like peeling away another layer of bitterness. Every sweep of the broom felt like reclaiming ground I had almost surrendered. By the time I finished, sweat clinging to my back, the place felt lighter, clearer, the kind of space that could hold peace again. As I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights flickering on, I realized something. They thought they had taken something from me, that by locking me out, they had stolen power. But in the end, all they had done was set me free. The following weekend, I hosted a small gathering in the building. Just a few tenants, neighbors, people who had stood quietly by while Jason and Sarah turned my home into their playground. We gathered in the courtyard, string lights glowing overhead, the September air cool against our skin. For the first time in months, the place felt alive in a different way. Not loud or chaotic, but warm, steady, safe. People laughed easily. Music played low from a speaker, and I could actually hear my own thoughts without Sarah's sharp voice cutting through the walls. As I moved through the group, someone touched my arm. Mrs. Alvarez from the 2nd floor, her eyes kind. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "We all saw how they treated you. You gave them everything and they gave you nothing." I swallowed, my throat tight. It's hard when it's your own son. She squeezed my hand. Sometimes love looks like letting them stand on their own. Her words stayed with me long after the gathering ended. Later that night, when I returned to my apartment, the silence was no longer heavy. It was comforting. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat by the window, the city buzzing softly in the distance. That was when my phone lit up. Jason's name. My first instinct was to ignore it, to protect the fragile peace I had just built. But my hand betrayed me. I answered. His voice was quiet, almost timid. "Hi, Mom." My chest ached at the sound. "Jason." A pause, then a sigh. I'm sorry. For everything. For the locks. For letting Sarah." His voice broke. "I just didn't know how to stand up to her. And I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to balance it." I closed my eyes, listening. His words weren't perfect, but they were something. A crack in the wall between us. "I won't lie, Jason," I said finally. "You hurt me deeper than you'll ever understand. But locking me out gave me clarity. I don't owe you a roof. I don't owe you silence. All I owe you is the truth that I love you, and that love doesn't mean being walked over." He was quiet, but I heard him breathing, steady. Then softly, "I want to do better. A tear slipped down my cheek, hot and quick. Then start. Not tomorrow, not next year. Start now. We didn't talk long after that. Just a few more words, cautious but hopeful. When I hung up, the room was still quiet, but it felt different now. I looked out the window, the night stretching wide and open, and I realized something powerful. Being locked out had hurt me, yes, but in the end, it had forced me to step back inside myself, to reclaim the strength I had forgotten. The building was mine, my home was mine, and my voice was mine. No one could lock me out again.